Where do we start to fix it, to make it right, to make a difference between true Islam and cultural Islam? The starting point, as the Prophet ﷺ used to say in his speeches, he would begin it after praising Allah, etc., saying, Inna asdaq al-hadith kitabullah. The most truthful form of speech is the book of Allah. He would always begin with that reminder. So this is where we need to begin. We need to get back to the Quran and to understand it and to bring it into our lives to play a primary role in our day-to-day lives that currently is missing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, speaking about the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and of times to come, he stated in Surah Al-Furqan, that's the 25th chapter, verse 30, وَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ يَا رَبِّي إِنَّ قَوْمِ اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. The messenger said, Allah said, the messenger said, O my Lord, indeed my people have boycotted this Quran. Indeed my people have boycotted this Quran. As Allah told us, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. That was Allah's reminder. Will they not reflect on the Quran, or are their hearts closed up, locked up? Kufr is a lock. And truly today, our hearts have become locked. That is the reality of the Muslim world today. Our hearts have been locked up from the Quran. So we need to open up our hearts. The way is through understanding the Quran, reading it, and reflecting on its meanings. Whether it is in Ramadan or outside of Ramadan, our goal is to understand the words of Allah. Better we read a little and understand a lot than to read a lot and understand little. That's, I think, obvious mathematics. We try to read and understand as much as we can.
Any person, any scholar, sister, says anything, ask for proof. Allah says in Surah Baqarah chapter 2 verse 111, Qul hatu bunanakum, produce your proof in kuntum sadiqin, but if you're truthful. Any scholar, therefore what I say, that what Dr. Zakir Naik says in Islam is zero, no value. What Allah says carry weight. Any person, any scholar, sister, says anything, ask for proof. Allah says in Surah Baqarah chapter 2 verse 111, Qul hatu bunanakum, produce your proof in kuntum sadiqin, but if you're truthful. Any scholar, therefore what I say, that what Dr. Zakir Naik says in Islam is zero, no value. What Allah says carry weight.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Peace be upon you all. Yeah. Ba'uz billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge with Allah against the accursed devil. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنَ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. And who is better in speech than one who invites to Allah and acts righteous and says, indeed, I am of the Muslims. هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين. This is my way, I invite to Allah by perception, I and whoever follows me, and glory be to Allah, for I'm not among the idolaters. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu ittaqullaha wa kunu ma'as sadiqin. O you who believe, beware of God and be with those who are honest, that is, those who are truthful. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming once again to witness this program. And as you see the topic, it has to do with let's decipher the mistranslated verses by the sectarians. That's the hadithiyuns, or quote unquote, I would say the mushriks. Yeah, salam ala Jahatel Mahmoud. Salam Nazir NSC, salam Abdul Rauf, Abdul Kim, Dexter, Adam Abdul Rahim. Peace be upon you, or thank you all for coming. Kindly share the program, because today's program will be very interesting. Kindly share so that it can reach those who will benefit from the reminder, inshallah. So, last week and last 2 weeks, I tackled chapter 3, verse 31, where they will quote the messenger and say, he says, Kul in kuntum tuhibbuna Allah fattabi'uni. And then chapter 4, verse 59, where they will say, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu atiu Allah wa atiu Rasul wa ulil amri minkum. Then chapter 4, verse 61? Yes. Yeah, I spoke about chapter 4, verse 61, where they will quote the verse and say, وَإِذَا كِيلَ لَهُمْ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ وَإِلَى رَسُولِ. They will quote that one. And then they say, this is what it means, by using it out of context. And again, they will quote chapter 4, verse 65, where he says, فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِي مَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ. They will quote that one and twist the context out. Again, I addressed that point in my last week's lecture. And this week's lecture, we are going to tackle some verses, controversial verses, which the sectarians like to twist. And it has to do with Quran chapter 53, verse 3 to verse 4, Surah Al-Najm, and chapter 59, verse 7, Surah Al-Hashr. And then, if God permits, chapter 16, verse 43 to verse 44, right? Many a times you see the mainstream Muslims, the sectarians, the hadithiyuns, they quote verses and they say, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيُ يُوحَىٰ. And then they will quote, they will say, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. They will quote such verses. Then they will go ahead to say, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. So all these verses they will quote in order to suit their agenda, twist the context, take it out of context, and then put in their garbage hadith there and say, oh, well, this is what it means. It means come and follow the sunnah or hadith or whatever have you. You understand? So God willing, I'm going to break them down to show you the loopholes they have in their understanding. And like I said, respectfully, if you think you are up to the task and you are a scholar, and please don't come to my wall and write rubbish on my wall. I only ask for one thing. I usually put my phone number out there. Just call me, let's arrange. Inbox me on Facebook, just inbox me, let's arrange. If you want to have a dialogue with me, you don't need to come on my wall and start pasting rubbish on my wall. Don't expect me to stoop so low to your level and go to my wall looking for somebody to debate with. No. You know you are up to the task. My inbox is there. You know you are up to the task. My phone number is always there. Give me a call. Inbox me. We can arrange it respectfully and come and face each other. But if you, after of your shallow mind, you think you write on my wall for me to respond, it means you are not okay. Yeah. So all I'm saying is you are up to the task. You are a mushrik, you are a hadithiyun, you are a Sunni, you are a Tijaniya, you are a Shia. You say Baba Shuaib is misleading the people. Please inbox me. Let's arrange a live dialogue. Let me embarrass you a bit. It's been a while I've embarrassed some scholars. So inbox me. Simple. Yeah, Salam, Sayyid Adam. So that's all I ask for. So don't waste my time coming to write rubbish on my wall, please. I'm beyond that. You don't expect me to pass class 1 and then expect me to come back repeated to class 1. No, I passed class 1. I'm moving ahead. If you want to meet me, you meet me in the next class. Don't bring me back to your level. I only ask the scholars if they think they're up to the task. Inbox me, the back channel. Let's arrange. Simple. Yes. So let's go for today's topic. Yes, peace be upon you all. Sister Natalia, I see you. I see you all. Liman, Imran, Anagan, Kasalam, Dreadlock, Begbon, Peace, YSG, Elijah Hatel Mahmoud, all of you, I see you. So let's start the topic for today. So like I said, many a times they will quote chapter 53 and then they will quote chapter 53, then they quote verse 3 to verse 4. And I'm going to decipher these verses and let you see how they are twisting the narrative to not making you understand the Quran in a proper manner or proper fashion. So I'm going to help the audience to understand what the scholars, the agenda the scholars have put in place and what they are trying to do to you, to mislead you by not telling you the truth. Right? So let's decipher the verses. So Quran chapter 53, chapter 53, verse 3 to verse 4. The scholars will quote the verse, then they will say, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Now, these people usually leave what we call the context out, the siyak, and they leave the subject out and they leave the context out. So then you are left with no content. So the content becomes twisted, right? And what I want people to actually pay attention is, let me share the screen so that people can see the verse I'm talking about, right? Salam Abdul, Salam Ali. Yeah, Salam brother Shahid, Said, Usman, Salam Alaikum. So I share the screen, right? I share the screen. Let's see what the verse says. So the verse starts from verse 1. It says, وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَىٰ مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَىٰ وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Then he says, Allamahu Shadidul Quwwa. Right? These are the verses. What the sectarian do is they leave the verses out of context. They quote only 2 verses. That is, they quote the verse 3 and verse 4. So they will say, Wama yantiku anil hawa. Of course, he's talking about the prophet, the messenger at the same time. He had 2 assignments. And I'm going to decipher to break it down to let you understand which of the assignments God is talking about here, right? So the sectarians wouldn't tell you which assignment the Quran is referring to on this side. So as I said, if you start from verse 1, God says, when Najmi is a hawa, it says by the star when it topples or when it sinks, hawa. Then it says, Ma dalla sahibukum wa ma gawa. Your friend is neither astray nor misled. The word dalla, that is what we see in Surah Al-Fatiha, where it says, Gair magdubi alayhim waladdallin, those who are misled, that those who have been led astray, right? So he's neither astray, that is your friend or your companion is neither astray. Then he says, Wama gawa, nor misled. Now this gawa can be is the same word as goes in the same root word with gayi, where God says la ikra fid din qad tabayyana rushd min al-gayy. And this is the same word Iblis used to tell God, Fabima agwaitani, by what you have entrapped me or misled me or sent me astray. he was accusing God that God sent him astray, right? So the devil used it in Quran chapter 7, verse 16 to verse 18, whereabout you see it there. So that is the same word. So your friend is neither astray nor misled. Then verse 3 comes. Then it continues. You can understand that it is a continuation from verse 2. So it's still talking about your companion, and he's talking to the Arabs telling them about Muhammad alayhi salam. So it says, nor does he speak from inclination. You see, nor does he speak, because he has something he was telling them or, delivering to them. So at that particular instant, that thing he's speaking about is not from inclination. You understand? So nor does he speak from inclination. Then verse 4 says, in huwa illa wahyun yuha. Now remember, the subject is talking about Muhammad as an entity, because it started saying your friend is neither astray nor misled. Then in verse 3 says, nor does he speak from inclination, meaning his desires. Then it goes verse 4, he was only inspired by inspiration, because the subject, he is the subject being discussed, right? And so in the subject, if you stick with the subject, you get to understand what the context is giving you. So the context here is based on inspiration. And then we all know from the horse's own mouth, he said he has been inspired with the Quran. Quran chapter 6 verse 19. He says, وَأُوهِيَ إِلَيَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ لِأُنْزِرَكُمْ بِهِ وَمَنْ بَلَغَ. Quran chapter 6 verse 19, right? وَأُوهِيَ إِلَيَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ لِأُنْزِرَكُمْ بِهِ وَمَنْ بَلَغَ. That this Quran has been inspired to me in order to warn you by it and whomever it may reach. So contextually, it is referring to the messenger receiving a particular inspiration which has to be given to the people. So it is not based on his inclination. So at that instance, it is based on his messengership duty. You understand? So he has been taught. So God says he was only inspired by inspiration. Then verse 5, the strong in power taught him, because he has been taught something that he has to go and also deliver to the people. You see, so if you take the verse in context, you get to understand the subject, the context, and the content, right? So now, these verses that usually the sectarians like to quote, and they say, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. I'm going to break them down so that people will get to understand the notion very precisely and clearly. And then it can clear the obstacle away from people's mind. When you go to Quran chapter 33 verse 40, Surah Al-Ahzab, right? Chapter 33 verse 40, I can share the screen. People can see the verse on the screen. Chapter 33 verse 40. Let me share the screen. So God says concerning Muhammad alayhi salam, God says, "Ma kana Muhammadun aba ahadin min rijalikum, walakin Rasulallahi wa khataman nabiyyin." Then he says, "Wa kana Allahu bi kulli shay'in alima." He says, Muhammad is not the father of anyone among your men. Right? He's not the father of anyone among your men. Then he says, "Walakin Rasulallahi wa khataman nabiyyin." However, or we can say, however, he is the messenger of God and the seal of the prophets. The seal of the prophet. Khataman nabiyyin comes from the word khatama, which is to seal, to put an end to something, to bring something to a conclusion. So the seal of the prophets. Then he says, "Wa kana Allahu bi kulli shay'in alima," and God is aware of all things, right? Now, so we can see the role of Muhammad. Muhammad is not only a prophet, but he's a messenger of God at the same time. So he has his prophethood duty and his messengership duty. You understand? Now, when it comes to the prophethood duty, a prophet is bound to use his own inclination. But when it comes to the messengership duty, a messenger cannot use his own opinion, as stated in Quran chapter 21, verse 27, right? I share the screen again. Quran chapter 21, verse 27. And let's see what that verse says. Suratul Anbiya, right? As a messenger cannot use his own inclination to speak out what God hasn't actually authorized or commanded. You see. So let me put the screen. Yeah, salam Baba Sidunaganka. Vora Vora, you're welcome. I'm doing good. Kamal Adam, salam alaikum. You're welcome. So let me share them and we get to see the verse I'm talking about. Quran chapter 21, verse 7. God says, La yazbikunahu bil qawl wa hum bi amrihi ya'malun. They do not precede God in the word, that is in the speech, in the statement that God has given them, the qawl, right? That is the qawl of God, the Quran. Wa hum bi amrihi ya'malun. And they act by his command, meaning when God gives the command, they do as they have been commanded. But when it comes to the prophethood duty, a prophet is just a title and a quality they are given in support of their messengership duty, right? So this title as a prophethood, he can follow his own inclination because it is not under the duty of messengership. It is a different role from the messengership duty that people should understand. So when God says, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ, it is talking about the messenger who has been inspired with a particular message to be given to the people. So in that instance, they do not precede God in the word. So they act by his command. But when it comes to the prophethood duty, he has his personal life. Look, he has a wife. He eats. He has a favorite food. He goes to the market. He has his own ways of dressing. You understand? So that is his personal life. So you just ask the sectarians a simple question. Are you saying that if the prophet tells his wife to cook jollof rice, this is also part of inspiration? It's also part of the inspiration he has been given? He comes to home and it's like, hey, darling, what did you cook for me? Did you cook jollof rice? So according to the sectarians, their understanding, it means whatever this entity, Muhammad, as a prophet said, is based on inspiration, right? So even if it has to do with his wife and he has to go to the bed with his wife, even if he tells his wife, I want you to sleep on the left or this way, it's based on inspiration. Logic out of the box, you see? So they lack the reasoning there. Logic is out of the equation now. Logic needs to play a role in understanding the concept of the Quran. You understand? So this is why we have siyak al-kalam. You base your reasoning on the context of what God is saying. So first of all, you need to understand the subjects. Then you can stay in line with the context. Because without understanding what the subject is about, you lose the context. Right? So I give an example. Let's say I'm talking about Barcelona and Real Madrid. Right? Then all of a sudden I told somebody that I told a friend that, hey, Barcelona will beat Real Madrid by 4-0, right? I'm telling him Barcelona will beat Madrid by 4-0. Then all of a sudden, you came out of nowhere. I was talking to somebody about Barcelona and Madrid, but all of a sudden, you can see you came out of nowhere. Then you just heard me repeating a statement by telling the other person that, guy, you know what? But they have to kill them. So I didn't mention Barcelona again. I didn't mention Madrid, but I told the person again, they have to kill them. So I use the word they have to kill them. You now coming as an intruder to come now to listen to what we are saying. If you don't understand the subject we are talking about, you can't put whatever we are saying into context, because then you are left with assumption, guessing, conjecture, opinion, desires, inclination. Because then you'll be thinking I said they have to go and kill somebody, meaning a physical death, to kill somebody, as in murder. But when you base it into the context and the subject I was discussing, it's all about football. I was just saying Barcelona should beat Madrid. So the second line of statement there, I told the person that they have to kill them. So if I say kill them, doesn't mean now literally killing them. You see, so you have to stay in line with the subject in order to get the right context, right? This is how the Quran works. And another example I give you is, Salam, peace be upon you all for joining now. Another example I give you is, for instance, if you take Surah chapter 97 of the Quran, verse 1, it says, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. It says, indeed, it has been revealed, or it was revealed, or it came down in the night of destiny. So then the context is, if I tell you, put it into the context for me. The first verse says, Inna anzalnahu, and that is a pronoun. Indeed, it, Inna anzalnahu. This who is a masculine pronoun. Salam, my sister Rashida. So this masculine pronoun, without understanding the subject based on the Quran itself, if I tell you, put it into the context for me, you'll be left with conjecture, guessing, opinion, because you don't know what is being discussed. So the chapter started by saying, indeed, it has been revealed in the night of destiny. So what is the it? That's the question. You need to read other chapters and other verses from other chapters in order to connect the dots, to understand that it is a reference point to the Quran. Because the Quran is referenced as a masculine pronoun, who or huwa. You understand? So by doing this, this is how to understand the subject first before you can put things into context. Then afterwards, you get a what? A content, because then you have something to discuss. You see my point here? Good. So, Sadiq Ibrahim says, Salam Baba, been following your program for a while, and I'm happy to tell you that I'm really out of the dark now. Thank you so much for bringing me to light. Have a blessed day. Thank you very much, Brother Sadiq Ibrahim. I appreciate too. The gratitude goes to God. I'm only playing my role. And thank you for showing your appreciation. And I thank you for also supporting the truth. Chapter 14, verse 1. Give credence to what this guy just wrote, right? The book is to serve as something we have to use to bring people out of darknesses into the light by the permission of God. So that is the benefit that somebody has just benefited from, you see. And this is how people should use their reasoning. It's not about me. It's not about what I think. It's about what God says. You agree with me, follow it. You don't agree with me, the way is there. You go your way. Simple. So let me continue. So chapter 33, verse 40. Ma kana Muhammadun aba ahadin min rijalikum walakin Rasulullahi wa khataman nabiyyin. So Muhammad is not the father of anyone among your men, but a messenger of God and the seal of the prophets. So he had two assignments, right? Two assignments. He was a prophet and he is a messenger. There is no single verse in the Quran where you see God saying, Atiwullaha wa atiwun nabi. It doesn't exist. God never, ever, even by mistake, he never says, obey God and obey the prophet. Because the prophet is his personal title that he has been given as a quality attached to the messengership so that he can use it when he is with the people. But when we say messenger, you are restricted. A messenger's duty is restricted to a role. You understand? He doesn't have a say from his own inclination. So this is why, as a messenger, if God says, when they ask you about women, when they ask you about the orphans, when they ask you about the hour, when they ask you about the spirit, when they ask you about wine and gambling, then God will say what? Kul, say. That is a messenger. He has no choice on what to decide. You understand? So God will now give him the answer to be said to the people. You see? So if you don't know how to differentiate these two duties, you are in limbo. And this is exactly what the Hadithiyun, the sectarian scholars, are doing to you. When God says, obey God and obey the messenger, then they will put the prophet there. Are you nuts? Who taught you by mistake? How can God mention Rasul, then you go and put Nabi there? Are you smarter than God? Quran chapter 33, verse 70, it says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, ittaqullah wa qulu qawlan sadida. Beware of God and speak the correct statement. Speak the accurate statement. speak the right statement. So if God says blue, who are you to go and say red? Are you saying God doesn't know the difference between a messenger and a prophet? Or are you telling us it is the same role? Out of your hypocrisy, your own hadith books are saying the duty of a messenger is not the same as the duty of the prophet. So how come if God says obey the messenger, out of your stupidity, you are now telling us it is the prophet? Are you saying we are dumb? We don't know that messenger is still the prophet himself? But they are different duties altogether. We don't join them together. So you have to know the difference. Just like I can be a teacher and a salesman at the same time. I can be a police officer and a bouncer at the same time. You understand? They are different duties. Good. So let's continue. Yeah, Dexter says sectarians mind game. Yes, they do mind games. It's like chess. They play chess with your mind always. So now I take you to Quran chapter 5 verse 87. Now in Quran chapter 5 87, God said something clearly there. Quran chapter 5 verse 87. And this verse is talking to all believers. So God says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tuharrimu tayyibat ma ahallallahu lakum wala ta'tadu. Then he says, Inna Allah la yuhibbul muhtadin. So God says in Quran chapter 5 verse 87, O you who believe, or who have believed, right? He says, do not prohibit the good things which God has made lawful for you. Quran chapter 5 verse 87. So I'm going to show you something interesting, how to differentiate the duty of a prophet and a messenger. A prophet can make mistakes. Yes, because he can use his own opinion and inclination, but a messenger has no room for error, because God will grab him for such a mistake if it's based on his duty as a messenger and he makes such mistakes. But a prophet has his own title and his own quality that he can use based on his knowledge that he has been given personally, right? So now Quran chapter 5 verse 87 clearly tells us that it's, O you who believe, do not prohibit good things which God has made lawful for you, and do not trespass, meaning do not pass the limits that God has set for. Then hereby we found that prophet in Quran chapter 66 verse 1. And this verse is very, very interesting. Chapter 66 verse 1. The scholars don't tell you, the sectarians scholars don't tell people about this. So I'm going to break it down. When you go to Quran chapter 66 verse 1, make it easy. Let me share the screen. Yeah. Let me share the screen, then you see the verse and you understand what I meant. So Quran chapter 66 verse 1, God says, Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu. So you can see in this verse, he's talking to the prophet. He didn't say, Ya ayyuhan rasul, because it has nothing to do with the messengership duty. Neither does it have to do with the message he has given him. This is personal here. So this is the title of Muhammad. So he says, Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu, lima tuharrimu. Then he says, Ma ahallallahu laka tabtagi mardata azwajika wallahu ghafurur rahim. He says, oh, you prophet, the prophet, why do you prohibit what God has made lawful for you? Seeking the satisfaction of your wives, or seeking the approval of your wives. Then God says, Wallahu ghafurur rahim, and God is forgiving and merciful. Now, out of the stupidity of some of the mainstream sectarians or the sectarian scholars, they will say, okay, tell us what did the prophet forbid for himself? Is it my business? It's his personal life. It has nothing to do with the message and messengership duty. So why do I need to know that? You understand? So let's assume, excuse me to say, let's assume God has made something lawful concerning how he can copulate with his wife, maybe a sexual act concerning he and his wife, and he decided not to do that thing. That is his personal thing. But why will he prohibit what God has made lawful? That is the only subject we have to discuss here, right? So if God has made something lawful for you, why will you prohibit it? But you can see, based on his prophethood duty, he used his own personal inclination to prohibit what God has made lawful. Do you see here? So God asked him a question. Why? Lima tuharrim ma halallahu laka tabtagi mardata azwajika wallahu ghafurur rahim. And remember, we just came from chapter 5 verse 87. God is telling you, the believers, oh, you who believe, do not prohibit good things which God has made lawful for you, and do not trespass. Salam, the boss Amadu. Abdul Salam Ali, this sounds like a good point. It sounds like a good point, but I've never thought of that. I have to think about this, right? Yeah, maybe I'll do this during Ramadan. I should do that during Ramadan. I've never thought of that. Thank you for the suggestion, Abdul Salam. I'll put that in my plan so that I can be doing it on Clubhouse at the same time. People can benefit, right? That's actually a good point. Thank you. So we just saw from Quran chapter 5 verse 87. God is telling all believers. Remember, the prophet himself is a believer. Amana rasulu bima unzila ilayhi min rabbihi wal mu'minun. Kullun amana billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi la nufarriqu bayna ahadin min rusul. Yes. Salaam alaji AB Yakub. You're welcome. Nazir NSC also suggested Twitter. Well, I will see what I can do. I can't promise that. Twitter, I don't have much followers on Twitter, right? Clubhouse, I think, yes, it's a big platform. Facebook, YouTube, yes. I'll see what I can do. You know, I'll do my best, inshallah. Thank you all for the suggestion. Abubakar Muhammad Tijani, yes, I love you too. I love you too. Those who are intelligent, using their reasoning to follow the truth, I love you all. Thank you. So let's continue. So Quran chapter 5 verse 87, God clearly told the believers not to prohibit the good things which he has made lawful. Then all of the sudden, Quran chapter 66 verse 1, we find the prophet prohibiting what God has made lawful for him. And you know, God will never make something bad as lawful for you. Actually, he did something good, lawful for the prophet. But the prophet ended up prohibiting that for himself, even though God made it lawful for him. Somebody will say, oh, it's personal. Yes, it's a mistake. It's a mistake. So that's why God asked him, Lima tuharrim. Lima. In Arabic, when we say lima, it means why. Now, why will you be asked a question if you have not made a mistake? Why will you ask why if somebody has not made a mistake? Do you understand me? I'm not quoting this verse to look down on the prophet or to say, hey, it's nobody. No. I'm only showing you because God is superior to all of us. So God is now telling us from the Quran, don't mistaken the identity of the messengership duty to the prophethood duty. They are two separate duties. So as a prophet, he can fumble, he can use his inclination. Of course, he has a title, he has a position, just like we have a president and he can make mistakes. Just like we have a president, even though he's the leader of a nation, he can make mistakes, he can err. You understand? So as a prophet, they are bound to err. They will make mistakes as well. You understand? But as a messenger, he has a role that he has to fulfill. He has no blame. He will do precisely what he has been told. So imagine if it was God who told him to prohibit that thing, that particular thing the prophet prohibited. Do you think God will come back and say, hey, prophet, why do you prohibit what I have made lawful for you? Do you think God will do that? Then God will become an unjust God. And according to Quran chapter 10, verse 44 to 45, God is never unjust to the people, but we are rather unjust to ourselves. You understand? So the prophet himself said it in Quran chapter 34, verse 50. He says, in the laltu, fa innama adillu ala nafsi. He says, if I should err, or if I should stray, then I will only err against my own self. But if I'm guided, then it is by what my Lord has inspired to me. That is what the prophet said. Quran chapter 34, verse 50 of the Quran. Right? Now, so by quoting chapter 66, verse 1 to you, I took you to that verse to show you that even though you are saying, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ, The sectarians don't know how to differentiate the duty of the prophet from the duty of the messenger. So they will tell you Muhammad never speaks from inclination. Are you nuts? If somebody doesn't speak from inclination, how come chapter 66 verse 1, he forbade something which God has made lawful for him? Is that from inspiration? Was that thing he did from inspiration? Afala takilun? Somebody just made a mistake. God is questioning him, and you, out of your ignorance, and you are making garbage books tell you that the prophet never spoke anything from his opinion. He says, let me catch your scholars one-on-one. Wallahi, you confess that day. Again, Quran chapter 9 verse 43. I put the verse, then I'll share the screen for you. Quran chapter 9 verse 43. Did Muhammad as a normal human being or as a prophet, did he speak from his own personal opinions or not? Did he use inclination or not? The answer is yes, he did. So the next evidence is in Quran chapter 9 verse 43, and I'm going to quote the verse, then we see clearly what the verse says. Then we move on to the next topic. Salam, Zulan Mo, you're welcome. Shahad Abdullah, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much also. Right? So I shared a screen. We see Quran chapter 9 verse 43. What does it say? It says, Afa Allahu anka lima azinta lahum hatta yatabayyana laka lazina sadaku. Then he says, وَتَعْلَمَ الْكَاذِبِينَ. So God says, God has pardoned you. Afa Allahu anka. God has pardoned you, Muhammad. God is talking to a second person pronoun. God has pardoned you. Then God asked him, Lima azinta. Why did you give permission? Lahum, to them. Hatta yatabayyana laka. Until those who were truthful became what? Clear to you, meaning it became evident to him. And then he got to know who were the liars among them. Why did he give them permission? Are you saying God inspired him to give the permission? And then God will come back to say, why did you give them permission? Quran chapter 9 verse 43. Is that what you, the Hadithiyuns, is that what you are telling us? That whatever Muhammad said and whatever he said is based on what? Inspiration? Who taught you by mistake? So are you saying when he goes to the market to buy fish, to buy Kobe, or to buy to buy pomo, to buy cow skin, or to buy kanda, are you saying that is inspiration? So he'll go and stand, they will ask him, Prophet Muhammad, which one do you want? Do you need the Kobe? It's 5 cedis. Is that the one you want? So he wait for God and say, God, inspire me, give me inspiration to buy the Kobe. Then he waits. So God will give him inspiration to buy that fish. Seriously. Salam, Joe Ipe. You're welcome. Do you understand? Yusuf Mega, you are welcome. Yeah, Nur, thank you very much. It's only people who possess intelligence, wise people will understand. Yes, thank you. So do you get the point? So Quran chapter 9 verse 43, this prophet, God says he has pardoned him. So if he has not made a mistake, why will God say he has pardoned him? Afa Allahu anka. Why will God pardon him? And God went ahead by asking him, Lima, why? Why did you permit them? Why did you give them permission? Before those who were truthful, who were honest, will become evident to you. And then you get to know who are the liars as well. Why did you give them permission? So are you saying he did that based on inspiration? No, that was the personal life of the prophet. He used his own inclination without getting inspiration. So when God says, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ, it's not based on his prophethood duty. It's based on the messengership duty. Do you get my point? So it is based on the messengership duty God classified to us in Quran chapter what? 69, verse 43 to verse 46. Quran chapter 69, verse 43 to verse 46. So let's go and understand the inspiration. Why God says, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. So I'm going to share the screen, then you get to see the verse. Quran chapter 16, verse 43 to verse 46. It's simple as A, B, C, D, but the sectarian scholars are fooling people. So Quran chapter 69, verse 43. God says, Tanzilu min Rabbil Alameen. Verse 44. Walau takawwala alayna ba'da al-akawil. Verse 45. La akhazna minhu bil yamin. Verse 46. Thumma laqata'na minhu al-watin. It says, a revelation from the Lord of the worlds. Then it says, Walau takawwala alayna ba'da al-akawil. And had he fabricated or made up against us or about us some of the sayings. The word ba'ada means some or part. Al-akawil is a marifa, it's a definite article. Now when we say akawil, it is whenever you see kul in the Quran. When God says, yes, alunaka anil khamr wal maisir, then God will tell him what? Kul. Yes, alunaka maza yunfiku. Kul. Yes, alunaka anil ruhu. Kul. Yes, alunaka anis sa'at. Kul. This kul you are saying in the Quran, just like kul huwa Allahu ahad, say, this is what we call akawil. And God didn't just say akawil as an indefinite noun. He said it in a what? A definite noun by saying akawil. So it's in the plural form. So the sayings, so had he, the prophet, made up, or had he, the messenger, made up some of the sayings against us or about us, then God says in verse 45, La akhazna minhu bil yamin. Then we will have seized from him by the right hand. Thumma laqata'na minhu al-watin. Then we will have cut the aorta out of him. And out of the ignorance of this mainstream sectarian, the Hadithiyuns, they will keep telling you, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. He is only telling you the revelation. That is where he used the inspiration. He has been inspired. Based on Quran chapter 6, verse 19. He told you clearly, وَأُوهِيَ إِلَيَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنُ لِأُنْزِرَكُمْ بِهِ وَمَنْ بَلَغَ. And that this Quran has been inspired to me in order to warn you by it and whomever it may reach. So that is why he says, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. So the verses he's telling you about is not about his inclination, but it is based on what? Inspiration. But Muhammad has his personal life as a prophet. Yes. This is what people don't understand. You understand? And I'm helping you to decipher this. So Holy Boles asked a question. He says, Salam, bro. So do we throw what we learned from the Islamic school from childhood away? Not everything. You don't throw everything away. No, I'm not saying that. No. You understand? Because even if you go to the garbage, you find something useful, right? So it's not everything you are going to throw. But most of the things they taught you in the Islamic schools are lies. Wallahi, they are lies. They twist the narrative. They told you things according to people's opinions, right? So be cautious of that. So now we've seen clearly now what the duty of the prophet entails. Now, when you go to the duty of the messenger, Quran chapter 46, verse 9, God says clearly in Quran chapter 46, verse 9. Let me see if I can share the screen to that. Quran chapter 46, verse 9. As a messenger, see what God says to the messenger. So as a messenger, I'm going to show you what the messenger himself, he said, his own words, right? God inspired him to say. Salam, Anyas Mufti, you're welcome. So I take you to Quran chapter 46, verse 9. Messenger was asked to say, Kul ma kunta bid'an mina rusul wa ma adri ma yuf'alu bi wala bikum in attabi'u illa ma yuha ilayya. And he says, wa ma ana illa nazirun mubin. Now this is the messenger speaking in Quran chapter 46, verse 9. God asked the messenger to say, you see the kul there. This is exactly what God asked him to say. He cannot use his opinion to say this thing. So God asked him to say, he says, Ma kuntu Bid'an min ar-rasul. I am not an innovation, or maybe you can use the word original, something of more that a different thing, like original of the messengers or among the messengers. Then he says, Wama adri ma yuf'alu bi, and I do not know what will be done to me. Then wala bikum, not to you. Then he says, In attabi'u illa ma yuha ilayya. I only follow what has been inspired to me. That is what he has to follow as a messenger and as a prophet. Wama ana illa nazirun mubin, and I am not but a clear warner. So as a messenger, this is exactly what he was inspired to say, right? As a messenger, he is inspired to follow what has been inspired. But then when you check Quran chapter, let me open this verse. Quran chapter 33, verse 1 to verse 3. And I'm going to show you something. As a prophet, he's been inspired to also follow what he has been inspired. But then as a prophet, he has a free will. As a messenger, he has to abide precisely. But as a prophet, he has a free will. He can choose to do some things, but it doesn't mean when he does wrong, God cannot rebuke him. So Quran chapter 33, verse 1, God says, Ya ayyuhan nabiy, ittaqullah wa la tuti'il kafirina wal munafiqin. Then he says, Inna Allah kana aliman hakima. Then he says, Wattabi ma yuha ilayka min rabbik. You see, as a prophet, God is telling him to follow what has been inspired to him from his Lord. Then God says, Inna Allah kana bima ta'amaluna khabira. And indeed, God is aware of what you, is cognizant of what you do. You see, then God says, وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا, and rely on God, and for God is sufficient as a representative. So you see, as a prophet, he's been instructed to follow what he has been inspired. But he has a human inclination. As a prophet, he can decide to do otherwise. So this is why in Quran chapter 66, verse 1, God cautioned him by saying, why do you prohibit what God has made lawful? And we see in Quran chapter 9, verse 43, God cautioned him, why did you give them permission before you could know who are the truthful among them and who are the liars? Why did you give them permission? So you can see, so as a prophet, he can use his inclination to do something, but still, he's not right to do that. So if you come and sit here and say, well, everything he said was based on inspiration, it means you are ignorant on what the Quran says. Good. Sadiq Ibrahim, I'll be opening the phone lines. I have to finish addressing a point here. So Sadiq Ibrahim, your question, I will come back to it, or remind me later when I open the phone lines. So let me focus on finishing this topic because it's very, very important, right, for the audience. So the Quran was inspired to the messenger to be delivered to the people. Quran chapter 10, verse 15 to verse 16. Let's see what it says. If I take you to Quran chapter 10, verse 15 to verse 16, and maybe I can share the screen so that people get to see the verse. Quran chapter 10, verse 15 to verse 16. Let me see if I can share the screen. Yes. So God says, وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا بَيِّنَاتٍ قَالَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ لِقَاءَنَا. Then they say, أَحْتِي بِقُرْآنِ غَيْرِ هَذَا أَوْ بَدِّلْهُ. Then the messenger was asked to say, قُلْ مَا يَكُونُ لِي أَنْ أُبَدِّلَهُ مِنْ تِلْكَاءِ النَّفْسِ إِنْ أَتَّبِعُ إِلَّا مَا يُوحَى إِلَيَّ إِنِّي أَخَافُ إِنْ أَصَيْتُ رَبِّي عَذَابُ يَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ. Then it goes, verse 16, قُلْ لَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا تَلَوْتُهُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَلَا أَدْرَاكُمْ بِهِ. Then he says, فَقَدْ لَبِثْتُ فِيكُمْ أُمُرًا مِنْ قَبْلِهِ. Then he says, أَفَلَا تَأْكِلُونَ. Now what is the verse saying? The verse says, وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا, and when our verses are recited to them بَيِّنَاتٍ, as evidences, as proofs, قَالَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ لِقَاءَنَا, those who do not expect or hope to meet us, they say, Ati bi Quran ghayra aza. Bring a Quran other than this. Aw badilhu, or change it. Kul, the messenger is now asked to answer them. Ma yakuluni an ubadilahu. Say, I cannot change it by myself spontaneously. Min tilka in nafsi. This is what the messenger was asked to tell them. He cannot change it by himself spontaneously. Then he says, In attabihu illa ma yuha ilayya. I only follow what has been inspired to me. You see, inni akhafu in asaitu rabbi azabu yawm al-azim. Azaba yawm al-azim. He says, indeed, I fear if I should disobey my Lord, the punishment of a terrible day. Right? So, verse 16, the messenger was asked to say again, Kul, law sha Allahu ma talawtuhu alaykum. At my Lord, at God willed, I will not have recited it to you. Wala adrakum bihi, nor will I make it known to you. This is what he told his people. Fakad labithtu fiikum umuran. I have lingered among you for a lifetime, because he has been among them for a long time before God revealed this to him to be delivered to the people. Then he says, Min qablihi, before the Quran was sent to him down. Then God says, Afala ta'qilun. Will you then not reason? Will you people then not reason? So when he says Wama yantiku anil hawa, is based on the message he has been given to give to the people. That is what he is not using his opinion. But Muhammad as a human being has his personal life. He has his favorite food, he has his favorite shirt, he has his favorite place he go, he has his own personal life, which is different from the duty as a messenger, but it's a big deal for mushriks to understand. So now we've seen the issue concerning Quran chapter 5 verse 3 to verse 4, right? So that is why he says in Quran chapter 6 verse 19, وَأُوهِيَ إِلَيَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ لِأُنْزِرَكُمْ بِهِ وَمَنْ بَلَغَ, that the Quran has been inspired to him in order to warn you by it and whomever it may reach. So as a messenger, he's not speaking from inclination. He's following as precisely what he has been inspired. But as a prophet, he can use his opinion. He can use his inclination. He has his personal life. People don't understand this, right? So now, apart from that, we have understand his duty as a messenger. Now, some of the sectarians will tell you that the prophet was given an inspiration, Gair al-Matlu. Gair al-Matlu meaning which has not been recited to us. Wahi bi Gair al-Matlu. Now, there is no other wahi which has been given to him which has to do with the people. As a prophet, he has his personal wahi pertaining to his personal life. That is not about us. We don't need that. That is his personal issue. But any inspiration that he has been given concerning his messengership duty, we can find it in the Quran. So I will give you an example. For instance, when you go to Quran chapter 17 verse 73, listen carefully what God says concerning the verse I'm going to quote. Quran chapter 17 verse 73. Had there been any other inspiration for the people, this verse will have been a contradiction, right? But sectarians don't know the Quran deep enough to understand, to grasp this concept. So I'm going to share the screen and show you the verse. The verse is in chapter 17 verse 73, and you are going to see what the verse says, right? Good. Now, God says, وَإِن كَادُوا لَيَفْتِنُونَكَ عَنِ الَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ لِتَفْتَرِيَ عَلَيْنَا غَيْرَهُ وَإِذًا لَا تَخَذُوكَ خَلِيلًا. So now God is saying, وَإِن كَادُوا لَيَفْتِنُونَكَ, they will have what? Enticed you or tempted you عَنِ الَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ, away from what we have inspired to you. لِتَفْتَرِيَ عَلَيْنَا غَيْرَهُ, in order to fabricate or invent something else other than what? It. So you see, God used the word غَيْرَهُ. He didn't say غَيْرَهِمَا or غَيْرَهُمَا. He didn't give him two types of inspiration for the people. He gave him one inspiration which is based on the Quran. So God says, his people, Muhammad's people, will have tempted him away from what God has inspired to him. That's why God says, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. So what God has inspired to him, so that these people will now what? Let him fabricate other than it about God. So he says, غَيْرَهُ. So غَيْرَهُ deduces a singular pronoun, a masculine pronoun. غَيْرَهُ denotes the Quran or the book. is one thing inspired to him to give to the people. Any other inspiration he received is personal. It has to do with his personal life. It has nothing to do with us. Understand the difference, right? Good. So let's move on. So now I take you to Quran chapter 59 verse 7. The scholars will quote today, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Oh, they are quoting it out of context. First of all, the verse never mentioned prophet. It mentioned messenger. Second of all, it's not talking about giving you hadith. And I'm going to help you. It's just simple as A, B, C, D. But the mushriks don't realize this, right? Good. So Quran chapter 59, verse 7. I'm going to that verse. Yes. Yes, Quran chapter 59, verse 7. But what I will do is, I will show you the verse the sectarian scholars usually quote, and they lie to the people about this verse, right? They quote this verse, and they twist it out of context, and they lie to you concerning what the verse says, and it doesn't say that. Bashir Yusuf is asking concerning the marriage, saying the Prophet married Aisha. It doesn't exist. It's a lie, right? Bashir Yusuf, that is a lie. It doesn't exist. Prophet never married a CCSO girl. Now, Winston Felix, I see you. Oh, you're welcome. Holy Bole says, just want to know your opinion about this Islamic preachers, Mufti Menk and Zakir Naik. Do they contradict themselves? Yes, they do. A lot. They do contradict themselves. A lot. A lot. A lot. They do contradict themselves because they don't follow the words of God. They mix up the jumbles with the words of God. So that's where the problem is. So Quran chapter 59 verse 7. In that verse, it says, وَمَا يَنْتِكُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Sorry. It says, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. That's chapter 59 verse 7. Now, this verse, they take it out of context. You can see it's a big verse. But what the sectarian scholars will do, the Hadithiyuns, what they do is, they will only quote the down part of the verse here, instead of quoting the whole verse in the context. So let's see the whole verse. It says, Ma afa Allahu ala rasuli min ali al-qura falillahi wa rasuli. Then he says, walizi kurba wal yatama wal masakin. Then he says, wabna sabil. Kayla yakuna dulatan bayna agniyai minkum. Wama atakumu rasul fakhuzuhu. Wama nahakum anhu fantahu. Wattaqullah inna Allah shadidul iqab. You see the verse. It is a full verse. So let's see what the verse says. Whatever God awarded to his messenger from the people of the towns, because if you check the context, the subject of the verse starting from above is talking about a war that the people went, the believers went to fight, right? And then God awarded the loot or the booty they got, right? Whatever God awarded to his messenger from the people of the towns, it does belong to God and to the messenger and to the relatives, the orphans, the poor, the wayfarer, so that it will not be rotated, meaning to be manipulated among the rich, in between the rich among you. And whatever the messenger gives you, meaning whatever the messenger gives you from what has been awarded, out of what they have gotten from the war front, right? Whatever the messenger gives you, then take it. So if he gives you anything from that war, the booty they got, the loot, take it. And whatever he forbids you from, then he refrain from it. You see, and beware of God. Indeed, God is severe in punishment. This is the context of the verse. But what the sectarians will do is, when they quote this verse, they will quote the small part of the verse, and then they say, the messenger give you hadith. Are you nuts? How can he give you hadith when he has never met Sahih Bukhari? Are you saying the messenger gave you Sahih Bukhari to follow? Hatu bur'anakum in kuntum sadiqin. Bring it, let's see. Where did the messenger ask you to follow Sahih Bukhari? You don't have it. The messenger forbade you from following any other book. You don't listen. Quran chapter 45 verse 6. فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثِ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. These words are coming from the messenger's mouth, his own mouth, because the Quran comes from the messenger. So he is asking you, in which hadith after God and his verses will they believe? Out of your foolishness, you took up garbage books and you are telling us whatever the messenger gives you, take it. Did he give you Sahih Bukhari? Come out. Any scholar who can prove to me where Muhammad gave you Sahih Bukhari to follow, wallah, I'll give you €1,000. Come out and face me live and prove to me where Muhammad as a messenger said he gave you Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim or Jami at-Tirmizi or Abu Dawood or Sunan ibn Nisa. Wallahi, I'll pay you. If you want, you stop working. Whenever I get my salary, I'll be paying you every month. Wallahi, wallahi, if you can prove to me. They will quote this verse out of context and lie to you. They say, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ Rasul. It is talking even about Rasul. Rasul will not give you anything that God has never commanded. Whatever God has commanded is in the Quran, precisely. God never takes you out of the context of the Quran to tell you something else. Do you see? So whatever the messenger gives you, take it. It is about the war front, the booty. So whoever wants to understand, start from chapter 59, verse 5, and read up to verse 10. The context is there clearly. It is not talking about Sunnah. It's not talking about Hadith. Don't lie to yourselves. Is it not obvious? Your scholars keep running like zebras. I said they should just inbox me. Don't look. Don't let them stay on their platforms to be making noise. I said yes, we inbox me. Let's arrange. It's simple as ABC. My phone number will be available. I'll give you the chance to call. Give them my number. Let them call. Let's arrange. I'll bring them live. Is it a big deal? If you go to your platform to go and write your garbages, how does that concern me? You expect me to come to your platform to come and type? I don't do that. And if you come, don't type up my wall. If you are a scholar, come to my inbox, right? Or call me. Let's arrange. Let me embarrass you a bit. It's been a while I've embarrassed some scholars. Seriously. So they will quote the verse and say, when God is talking about the messenger, stick to the messenger. Don't go outside the context of a messenger. So when God says messenger, let's see. Quran chapter 24, verse 54. Let's see what the verse says. Quran chapter 24, verse 54. How do we obey the messenger? I'm going to show you how to obey the messenger. And it has nothing to do with Sahih Bukhari. It has nothing to do with Sunnah. It has nothing to do with Sahih Muslim. Forget the scholars. They are liars. They are lying to you. Wallahi lazim. I'm going to give you the verse. Quran chapter 24, verse 54. And let's see how to obey the messenger. It's simple as ABCD. God says, Kul atiullaha wa atiur rasula. Then he says, فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْهِ مَا هُمِّلَ وَعَلَيْكُمْ مَا هُمِّلْتُمْ وَإِن تُطِيعُوهُ تَهْتَدُوا وَمَا عَلَى رَسُولِ إِلَّا بَلَاغٌ مُبِينٌ. So God is now telling the messenger to tell us, obey God and obey the messenger. Right? Because you can only obey God through the messenger. Whatever the messenger has to tell you has to come from God. And that is the Quran. That is the book of God. So Quran chapter 4 verse 80 says, Man yuti rasula faqad ata Allah. Whoever obeys the messenger is obeying God. Because the messenger brings you the messages of God. Quran chapter 5 verse 67. Quran chapter 5 verse 67. It says, Ya ayyuhar rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, wa illam taf'alu, fama ballagta risalatahu, wallahu ya'simuka minan nas. Inna Allah la yahdi al-qawma al-kafirin. You see, so Quran chapter 5 verse 67, God says, oh, you the messenger, deliver what has been revealed to you from your Lord. And if you do not, then you have not delivered his messages. You see, and God will safeguard you from the what? The people. So the messages that has been given to the messenger is what God asks you to obey. And what is the message? We can find it all in the Quran. It is not outside the Quran. So God says, Atiullaha wa atiu Rasul. So obey God and obey the messenger, because both the words of the messenger and the God can be found in the Quran. You don't go outside the Quran to find the words of the messenger. No, you go and find a words of the fake prophet, somebody God never sent. That is what you have in the Hadith books. I'm telling you for a fact. Wallahi. Good. Then he says, فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْهِ مَا هُمِّلَ. And if you should turn away, then only what has been imposed upon him, that is upon him, that he has been imposed to deliver the message of God. وَعَلَيْكُمْ مَا هُمِّلْتُمْ. And upon you is what you have been imposed. Then God says, وَإِن تُطِيعُوهُ تَهْتَدُوا. And if you should obey him, not the prophet, the messenger, listen carefully. Check how to understand the subject, the context, and the content. Right? If you should obey him, who is God talking about? This is simple as ABCD. God is talking about the Rasul. He never mentioned Nabi in that verse. So if you obey the messenger who has been given messages to deliver to you, then what? You will be guided, because who gives you guidance? God. Quran chapter 61 verse 9. Huwa allazi arsala rasulahu bil huda wa dinil haqq liyuzhirahu ala ad-din kullihi walau kariha al-mushrikun. So even if the mushriks dislike it, God has sent his messenger with the guidance. So if you obey the messenger, you'll be guided, because the guidance comes from God, not coming from Muhammad himself. Neither is it from the prophet. Innaka la tahdi man hababta. He cannot guide the one he loves or likes. You understand? Aha. So as a messenger, he brings you the guidance of God. So when you obey that message he brought, you'll be guided. So Quran chapter 16 verse 104. Whoever doesn't obey the verses, who doesn't believe in the verses of God, God will not guide them. This is simple, but the mushriks are struggling. So God went ahead and saying, وَمَا عَلَى رَسُولِ إِلَّا بَلَاغٌ مُبِينٌ. Then he says, وَمَا عَلَى رَسُولِ. Only the clear notification is upon the messenger. Only. وَمَا عَلَى رَسُولِ إِلَّا بَلَاغٌ مُبِينٌ. And if you are looking for the balag, chapter 14 verse 52, هَذَا بَلَاغٌ لِلنَّاسِ. The Quran is the balag. It is not a different book which is the balag. And the Quran, we all testify, is a kitab mubin. It's a clear book. And look how simple I'm talking. The scholars think I have to wear أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن نعمد ونستعين. No, come on. We are past that level. Seriously, that is comedy. And that is what the Mufti Mengs, the Zakir Naiks, the whatever you are seeing, that's the comedy they are doing. This is comedy. Put the garbages aside and let's deal with the truth. That is the words of God. Okay, so now Quran chapter 24 verse 54, we have seen how to obey the messenger. Quran chapter 13 verse 40, God told him only the balag is upon him and the hisab is upon God. So God will do the hisab on the day of judgment. Quran chapter 14 verse 52, it tells you what is the balag. Haza balagul linnas. The balag is the Quran. If you are in your right senses, if something says haza, this, T-H-I-S, this, if I say haza, this is the glass, is there anything else you have to go and search? So God told you clearly, the Quran, haza balagul linnas. This is the notification for the people. What else do you need? The messenger has already brought the balag. We have it in our hands. You see? Aha. Good. So now, Quran chapter 4 verse 64. Quran chapter 4 verse 64. God said something in this verse concerning a messenger. He says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا لِيُطَاعَ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ. We did not send a messenger except to be obeyed by the permission of God. Where did God give you the permission to obey Sahih Bukhari? Is Sahih Bukhari your messenger? Is Sahih Muslim your messenger? Why am I even saying Sahih? Because they are garbages. Why am I even adding Sahih to it? A book your scholars classify as Sahih, the prophet doesn't know, the messenger doesn't know the book. He never even know what we say Bukhari. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. The scholars are telling you the prophet knows the guide. He has predicted what is coming. He said the Dajjal is coming. Imam Mahdi is coming. Jesus is coming. Whatever is coming, right? Is that so? He says the hadith predicted the future, right? How come this same prophet in the hadith couldn't predict that Sahih Bukhari, Imam Bukhari will be coming in the future? to publish his hadith books. Give me one hadith where Prophet himself stamp it or sign it and give you and say, this is Sahih, follow it. Allah mushrikanga. Jikin ku ya zafi. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, look at this guy, Ramzi Mukhtar. Look what he wrote. He says, you are lost, bro. Hellfire is where you belong. For you trying to mislead Muslims. I don't know where I'm misleading Muslims to go. I brought the Quran. I said, come and follow the book of God. Out of your foolishness, you said I'm misleading people. I'm misleading them to where? To what? To the garbage hadith? Allah mushrika go for street. Allah. Now for street to go too much. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. Christina says what? She said, Baba Shoaib, you teach like a pastor. More anointing, simple and clear. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And pastor is not a bad thing, right? Thank you. Yeah. Abdul Samad, the mushriks are confused. You know, in football, when the striker pressures the defenders, they score an own goal. And that is what Baba Shoaib, the correctional officer, that is what I'm causing the mushriks to face. They are scoring own goal for themselves again. Wallahi, mushrika kun confused. I only told you, let your scholars inbox me. Let me bring them on this platform. Here, this is the same place I sit to lecture people. You claim I'm misleading people. And I said, let your scholars call me or inbox me. I bring them here to embarrass them. Simple and clear. I'll tell you the fact. I will embarrass your scholars. Wallahi, wallahi. You let them venture. That's all I ask for. Let me put my number there. That's my phone number there. Give it to your scholars, please. Tell them to inbox me. Call me. Let's arrange. Tell them to stop wasting their time typing on my wall. Look, I have a life. I have kids to take care of. So you don't come and write garbages on my wall. Inbox me if you are up to the task, right? Then I can embarrass you a bit. Simple. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've broken down these two verses, right? Quran chapter 5, verse 3 to verse 4, and Quran chapter what? Quran chapter 59, verse 7. Let me see. My time is limited. I wanted to go to another verse. Salam, Sister Aisha Musa. You're welcome. Vora says the mushriks are running kiti kiti kata kata. Let them keep running. I'll get them. They cannot run forever. They can run, but they cannot hide. Wallahi, I'll get them. They think the garbage that they go to learn. They say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. That is Quran, right? According to them, that is what we call Quran. That means you know the Quran. Let me catch you. That day, you know all the tajweed is useless. So, okay, I've addressed these two verses. I wanted to go to chapter 16, verse 44, right? But I wanted to open the phone lines as well. So I don't know if I should leave that interest part for the next topic during Ramadan so that I can address that next week, inshallah. Yeah, that is Abdul Salam Ali putting up an hadith there. Thank you very much, Baba Sidi. Yes, thank you. Abdul Sabah says sweet voice. They think the sweet voice means they are knowledgeable. Allah kumbar shakir. Yasin Abdul Rahim says, how do you feel about the teachings of Sheikh Bai Nyas? Well, I'm not here to comment on that for now. So let's leave that out of the topic. I don't want to change the whole concept. So this is left for another discussion. I don't like talking personally about a scholar, right? To focus on him. No. Let me say it. Somebody says, I like your teaching, but I fear to take your message seriously because of how you insult. He says, Prophet Muhammad never insulted the believers. Oh, my brother, you have misunderstood everything. He says, I like your teaching, but I fear to take your message seriously because how you insult. Well, that is your own cup of tea, brother. Number one, I didn't say you should come and pay me. Two, I'm only lecturing intelligent people. If you are intelligent, take what the Quran says and leave me out of it. Whatever I'm doing, if the Quran talks against it, I will not do it. If I call somebody a fool, it's part of the Quran, I can do that. Prophet Musa alayhi salam, chapter 7, verse 155 to 156, he called his people foolish people because some of them were foolish, right? It is allowed. Prophet Muhammad called people kafirs. Quran chapter 109, verse 1, right? Prophet Muhammad called his people ignorant people, jahilun. Quran chapter 39, verse 64. So if I'm sitting here, if you act foolish and I tell you you are a fool, you think I'm insulting, then brother, something is lacking. Please, don't put emotions here. If you are emotional, stay away from my page. I'm not asking you to pay me. You like my teaching, that does me no good if you are not benefiting from it, right? So use your reasoning clearly. You are not here to be my fan. You are here because of the truth. So if you want to follow the truth, al-haqqu min rabbikum faman sha'a falyu'min wa man sha'a falyakfur. I don't need you to come and tap my back saying you like my teaching. It does me no good. Oh, Allah mutaninga. Do you think that the truth is easy to chew? Huh? You said you need the truth, and here you are, you can't handle the truth. Huh?
Any person, any scholar, sister, says anything, ask for proof. Allah says in Surah Baqarah chapter 2 verse 111, Qul hatu bunanakum, produce your proof in kuntum sadiqin, but if you're truthful. Any scholar, therefore what I say, that what Dr. Zakir Naik says in Islam is zero, no value. What Allah says carry weight.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the phone line is open. I think now people can call regarding the topic, what I have discussed so far. Your phone calls, WhatsApp call only. They are welcome. You can call me. You can ask me questions pertaining to the verses I've explained and what I've explained so far. Quran chapter 16, verse 44. I'll be addressing that next week, inshallah, because of the time frame. Now, I want my lectures to stay around 1 hour, 30 minutes or so. I don't want it to go so much because it's difficult for people to actually watch. So what I'll be doing next week is I'll be addressing chapter 16, verse 43 to 44, and chapter 4, verse 115, and chapter 75, verse 16 to 19, and chapter 10, verse 37, and so on. So mainly the subject for next week will be chapter 16, verse 43 to 44, and chapter 4, verse 115, right? So the number is there. Okay, my phone, yes. I'm making sure my WhatsApp line is connected. You can call to ask your questions. If you cannot call, also you can just type your questions. And for those who don't know my YouTube channel, let me put the banner so that people can subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can watch the lectures, any other lectures I've done concerning Salat, concerning Siyam, and also about Ramadan. I'll be putting in some videos here and there in between so that people can watch and catch up to the issues concerning Ramadan, inshallah. So ladies and gentlemen, that's a recap of what I've explained. I've explained chapter 59, verse 7, and chapter 53, verse 3 to verse 4, right? So your questions are welcome. You can type your questions or you can call to ask your question. Holy Bole says, how I wish I could hear you talk about Ramadan and how it has been offered. Yes, I have a video I put recently, I think 2 days ago, concerning Ramadan, and I have the lectures also on my YouTube channel. You can see the YouTube channel here. I put it here, Bush 2G9 on YouTube. I have the full lecture there concerning Ramadan. It has a folder The Siyam series, the Salat series, everything you want to know is there. Bashir Yusuf says, can you explain Surah 4, chapter 4, verse 34? Did Quran said men should beat their women? No, it didn't. It never said we should beat women. He said, he's asking Bashir, let me put that on the screen, right? Quran chapter 4, verse 34. Okay, hold on. Somebody, we have our first caller. Somebody's calling. Yes. Yeah, salam alaikum.
Hello. Alaikum salam.
Yes, your
Good
name.
afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Your name and where you are calling from.
Yeah, this is Ibrahim Sadiq. I'm calling from Kumasi.
Ibrahim Sadiq, nice to meet you. You have 2 questions to go.
And now we have 5 salats, 5 daily prayers, 5 salats, which is ununderstandable, different from the Quran. I'm kind of like, I don't really have faith in the salat right now, because as I'm talking to you right now, like, I've kind of lost faith in praying. I only talk to God from my heart. Like, whenever I'm feeling down, I'll talk to Allah and I'll feel okay. I don't know if I'm being like out of the way or I'm rightly in the path, because even God says, you talk to me and I'll listen to you. And second question is pertaining to Ramadan right now, because right now from childhood they've been making us believe that Ramadan.
Ibrahim, wait.
Yeah.
Your first question, what was it?
Yes.
What was your first question precisely?
About salat.
What is it about salat you ask?
Yeah, the daily prayers. Is it actually 5 daily prayer or 3 prayers, or maybe it's just a way of communicating with Allah directly, or I don't know, differently? Because right now, though they say in salat is bad, and yet we recite Quran in salat.
Brother,
and Quran is Allah's word.
Brother Ibrahim, let me help you here. When you're asking a question, don't go ahead explaining the question. Like, give the question, right? If I don't understand, I will ask you further, then you explain more. But when you ask me a question, give me the chance to answer. Don't go further explaining. You ask, you wanted to know whether it's 3 or whether it's 5. In the Quran, we have 3 salats. We don't have 5 salats. The 5 salat is the concept of the hadith. It's coming from the narration of Abu Dhar, coming from the hadith, based on Sahih Bukhari, saying that the Prophet went to the heavens to go and bring 5 salats from 50, and it was negotiated, it became 5. That concept is not in the Quran. And again, we only find 3 salats, and namely, we have Fajr salat, we have Isha salat, and we have Salat al-Wusta. Only 3 name of salat in the Quran, and 3 timings in the Quran, right? And then, so, can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me, brother?
Hey, my network is kind of bad.
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Shit.
So let's hope he calls again. So you see this guy, Aka, is it what? Is it Melenza? He made an emotional statement saying he liked my teaching, but then he said I'm insulting, and yet he couldn't prove where I insulted somebody. But then look at the statement he said. He says you are teaching. You want to say your teaching is different from the entire Islamic scholars. And so, have you ever verified what they teach you? You never did. Then he says, how can you alone say? You have to say, how can me alone say, not said. Jummah and 5 daily prayers are not in the Quran. You see? Emotional. So no wonder you came to write your opinion there. Anyways. Yes, brother.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, wa alaikum salam. Can you hear me?
Sorry, my network was kind of bad. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So let me answer the question I was answering. So we only have three salats. We only have three salats in the Quran, namely Salat al-Fajr, Salat al-Isha, and Salat al-Wusta. These are the only three. And I have the video on YouTube. You can watch it. I can send you the link, or you can page me here. Just write in the comment section. I'll send you the link. Then you can watch. You see the explanation and the clarification to that three salats. What is your second question?
Yeah, my second question goes about the Ramadan right now that we are going to have. Is it compulsory in Muslim fast 30 days, or just you fasting in the month of Ramadan? Is it compulsory?
In the Quran, for example, in Islam, in the Deen itself, Quran chapter 2, verse 256, La ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in the religion. In Islam, there's nothing compulsory. Right?
Okay.
There's nothing compulsory in Islam. Now, I know people who don't understand this will take my words out of context. They will think I'm talking about something. When we say compulsory, I give an example. If fasting is compulsory, even if you are sick, you have to fast. Even if you are traveling, you have to fast. Even if there is no night time where you are, you have to fast. That means compulsory. That is what we call compulsory. You understand? Siyam is not compulsory. It is based on your faith. And God has given the options in Quran chapter 2, verse 184. If you are sick, then you do other days. If you are traveling, you do other days. If you can do it, but you struggle, then you ransom by feeding a poor person. You understand? So since God has given you options to do things, we don't call it compulsory anymore.
Okay. All right.
You get my point? So I have a video explaining concerning the Ramadan, the Siyam. I can also, the link is available. You can inbox me. I'll send you the links. You can watch, inshallah. Let me give the chance for the next callers, inshallah.
Okay, no problem. I'll send you a message on your page, so you give me the links.
Yes, I'll give you the links, inshallah. Then you can watch. Thank you for calling.
All right, thank you very much for attending to me.
Yes, you're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu.
Yeah.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, Adam Osman. Yes. As I think Bashir Yusuf said, he sent a WhatsApp. Let me see. You sent a message. Bashir Yusuf. Bashir Yusuf is asking Quran chapter 4, verse 34, right? Concerning people saying beating the women, beating your wives. No, God never commands us to beat our wives. That is in Surah An-Nisa. You understand? Words in the Quran have multiple meanings. I'll come to your answer. Let me answer this call. Yeah. Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
My name is Adam Abdurrahim. So my question, I have two questions. Actually, I typed them, but let me just bring it up here again.
Okay.
So my question is that do we have to recite Fatiha followed by Surat in our Salat? My second
let's do the first question first.
Sure.
So the first question, according to the Quran, there is no mandation where God has mandated us by force you have to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. No, it's not. There's no command in the Quran which says you have to do that. However, when we read Quran chapter 73, verse 20, it says, فَقْرَؤُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ. He says you should read what is easy of the Quran. So during your salat, you are actually in connection with God. You are actually communicating with God. That is, if you're doing your salat alone, just like Zakir did in Quran chapter 3, verse 38 to 39. But when you are doing a congregation, like you are with a group, Whatever you are going to recite in your salat is a message going to the people in the congregation. So they have to understand what you're saying and the connection of the verses you are telling them. So the Fatiha is more like a dua. You are supplicating to God, right? So it depends on an individual. If you want to use it, fine. If you don't want to use it, there is no restriction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my second question is there anywhere in the Quran that talks about the journey the Prophet made to go and get the Salah? So I think they call it Siratul Miraj or something. I don't really get the words they mention.
They say Isra wa Miraj, yeah?
Isra wa Miraj. Is there any verse in the Quran talking about that verse? And what's the understanding around that verse?
All those things are based on the hadith. There is no such thing as mentioned as Isra wal Mi'raj in the Quran. Some of the scholars will misquote chapter 17 verse 1 where he says Subhanallazi asra bi abdi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa allazi barakna hawlahu. They will quote that verse and it has nothing to do with that. And then they will go to Surah An-Najm where God spoke about the prophet seeing a vision of the meeting the angel. It has nothing to do with that either. So the concept of Isra wal Mi'raj come from hadith. It is not a Quranic concept. It is not from God. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, brother. Salam. Yeah. So chance, let me answer Brother Bashir Yusuf's question. So Brother Bashir Yusuf, Quran chapter 4 verse 34, it says, Ar-rijalu qawwamuna ala nisai bima faddala Allahu ba'duhum ala ba'd. Then he says, وَبِمَا أَنْفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. Then he says, فَالصَّالِحَاتٌ قَانِتَاتٌ حَافِظَاتٌ لِلْغَيْبِ بِمَا حَفِظَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّاتِي تَخَافُونَ نُشُوزَهُنَّ. Then he says, فَإِزُوهُنَّ وَأَجْرُوهُنَّ فِي الْمَدَاجِعِ. Then he says, وَأَذْرِبُوهُنَّ. Then he says, وَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ فَلَا تَبْغُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ سَبِيلًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلِيًّا كَبِيرًا. Now God says men are the guardians over women. It doesn't mean men are better than women. That is not what the verse means. I give an example. Let's say the president of Ghana, he has a bodyguard. Does it mean when somebody is a guardian over the president, does it mean he's better than the president? The answer is no. Men are there to be guardians over the women. Why? Because of what God favors some of them over others. Then he says, and because of what they spend from their wealth. That is why men are the guardians of women. Thus, the righteous women will obediently guard in their absence by what God maintains. As for those whom you fear their discord, nushuzahunna, if you fear the discourse of them, then admonish them. And then what? Abandon them in birds. And what? Renounce them. But if they obey you, then do not seek a way against them. Indeed, God is supreme and magnificent. So it's not talking about striking women. The word adribuhunna, remember Quran chapter 3 verse 7. God says among the signs of the Quran, some signs are similar. Now, when something is similar doesn't mean the same. So, for instance, the word daraba can be used in different formalities in the Quran. It can be used to mean explain. It can be used to mean cover. It can be used to mean seal. It can be used to mean renounce. It can be used to mean travel. Right? So, if you see daraba here, doesn't always mean daraba means to beat or to strike somebody. So, God used adribuhunna. You see, so it has nothing to do with beating women, as the mainstream Muslims always say, right? Yeah, salam, Musa Jamila. Ladies and gentlemen, I can pick up the next caller, the last caller, before I drop the topic, because it's almost 2 hours. So if you cannot call, you can just send me a message. I will read your message. Yes, Alaji, yes, I will send you the link. I saw your message. I will do that. I will send you the link. Uh-huh. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Sister Aisha Musa, actually, she brought my attention to the verse 35, chapter 4, verse 34 to verse 35. So verse 35 says, and if you fear dissension, shikaka, between the man and the woman, that is the married couple, then send an arbitrator, that is an arbiter, from his family and an arbiter from her family. So if they intend to reconcile themselves, between themselves, God will grant them success. Indeed, God is omniscient and cognizant. So it has nothing about physical hitting somebody, or it is just a way of giving a thought of lesson to the partner. And remember, men also have their nushus. Not only women have nushus. I think in Quran chapter 4, verse 128 to 129, there's the scenario there concerning the nushus of men as well. So the shikak can be a dissension between a man and a woman. And we can see you send an arbiter from her family and an arbiter from his family in order to reconcile between them, right? So it is nothing about hitting a woman, no, right? And nowhere throughout the Quran did God ever say men are better than women. It is not talking about betterment, no. It is just talking about being a guardian. So like I said, if you guard somebody, if you are guarding somebody, doesn't mean you are better than that person, no. It is by what God has given men, by the wealth. Because assuming if a woman is pregnant, she's carrying a baby, a man goes out to work in order to get financial gains and come back home to do the necessary act. You understand? So that a woman can take care of the kid or conceive while conceiving the baby. So these are the scenarios where people should understand that nowhere in the Quran where God actually made men to be superior to women. It doesn't say so. No. We all have our own roles to play, right? Good. Right in Naganka, salam, bro. You're welcome. Mama Nakari Nokin, and I'm bringing the topic to an end. So I can pick up the last caller before I drop the topic. So for those who didn't watch from the beginning, the program was about breaking down Quran chapter 53, verse 3 to verse 4, and Quran chapter 59, verse 7, right? وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ, and then they say وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. So I've broken that down to decipher the meanings of these verses. Next week, inshallah, I'll be breaking down chapter 16, verse 44, where the sectarians will say وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Then they will say it means sunnah. Then it will say it means this. It means this. No, it's a lie. I'll break it down for you, right? Yes, thank you. So the brother asked a question saying that people will say that the Quran says he created things in pairs. Now, when he used the word zawj doesn't necessarily mean pairs always. And in Arabic, one word can have multiple meanings. So what people need to understand is this same word zawj can be classified as a kind, right? Kind of something, another kind, or some kind of something. When we say, for instance, twins are pairs. If you go to Quran chapter 13, verse 3, where God says he is the one who spread out the earth and placed anchors. The anchors are mountains and rivers therein. And of all fruits, he made two kinds. We don't say two pairs. Of course, the word zawjaini can be used to reference as pairs. But whenever you are translating words, which is tarjama, a translation, when you are translating something in the Quran, it has to do with the context you find the word and how many meanings that particular word has, right? So it is not every time you see the word zawjaini that you have to put two pairs, right? It depends on how the context works, where you can put two pairs or two kinds. So for instance, Quran chapter 13, verse 3 talks about he made two kinds therein of the fruits. Then he causes night to cover the day, and then causes what? The day. Then there are signs in that for people who ponder. Then again, you have verses where you go, it has used the word kinds like for instance, if you go to Quran chapter 15 verse 88, he used the word do not extend your eyes toward what we have caused kinds of them to enjoy thereby. In that instance, is used the word azwajan. Azwajan, if you translate it as pairs, the word azwajan is a multiple word which can be used for 3, 4, 5, not 2. When we say zawjaini, it becomes pairs, 2. But in chapter 15, verse 88, if the word azwajan, if you have to translate it as pairs, you contradict the verse because he's talking about 3 or more things. So he says, do not extend your eyes toward what we have caused kinds of them to enjoy thereby, and do not grieve over them. So Quran chapter 15, verse 88, in the contrast of Quran chapter 13, verse 3, where he used zawjaini. If I'm translating the Quran, when I'm translating the Quran, I would rather use kinds, not pairs, right? So God has created 2 kinds or kinds of animals, but it doesn't mean, for instance, when you said scientists have discovered that there is an animal which is only 1 kind, this is scientists telling you that. Scientists are still using theory to discover things. A scientist can discover something now and later on discover something to wipe out the old knowledge they have. You understand? So it doesn't become a fact yet. The creator of the universe is telling you what he has created. So it is a matter of translation, right? It is not a matter of contradiction in the Quran. It's a matter of translation. So that's all I can say concerning the word zawjaini or azwajan, right? So the proper meaning to use is kinds, created kinds, not pairs, right? So this is where I'll drop that for that question. So let me see if there's any last thing I have to do before I go. Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, this is where I dropped the topic for now. I have to go, and it's my salat time already. It's getting late. For further questions, Brother Bashir Yusuf, you have my number. You can send me messages. I have time, I'll answer you. For those who have asked a question that I don't have the time to answer, I'll find the time to answer, inshallah. Yes. Yes, Brother Bashir. Yeah, I think the network doesn't permit me to pick his call. So ladies and gentlemen, this is where I drop the topic for now. And all I will say is Subhana Rabbi Zata Amma Yasifun. Wassalamu ala al-mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.